Hey guys, welcome to Ask a Hygienist, live edition. Can you guys give me a thumbs up in the comments or let me know if the audio is working okay? I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. I'm just going to comment here real quick. Hello. Audio is working. Oh, typo. Okay, here we go. Maybe I'll just take this out. Okay, I think the audio is working now. So anyway, welcome to Ask a Hygienist Live Edition. I'm Christina, the hygienist, and I want to start off by saying, by telling you guys a little bit about how I became a hygienist or what got me into the hygiene career. So actually, it's not really a fancy story or anything. When I was coming to the college age, my parents said, go get a medical career because it's very useful and you'll always have a job. And so I did. I chose dental assisting because my aunt was a dental assistant. And um, so I figured, if she's done it, I can do it too. But yeah, so while I was going to school for dental assisting, I also was a sterilization technician at a dental office. They wanted to train me to become a dental assistant, but I figured I'd go through the school route because just better training that way. But anyway, I was a dental assistant for a couple of years, and just for honestly, mostly just like financial reasons, I decided to become a hygienist. Um, I figured a couple more years of school will justify um, the salary upgrade. So I decided to get into dental hygiene school, and I got in and finished school. And then somewhere in the middle of going through school and then becoming a hygienist and seeing people's mouths and answering dental questions, I uh, I realized that a lot of people don't understand um, how important oral health is and how easy it is to take care of their teeth with the proper techniques and tools. So, with every patient, I was just answering more and more questions and seeing people get motivated and understanding better. So, that's kind of where this channel was born. I realized that, I can help one patient at a time, or I can get information out to the masses for anyone who is interested in their oral health. So that's kind of my journey. Um, Anyone who's watching right now, I'd love to hear from you where you're watching from and what got you interested in oral health. So much so that you are watching a dental live stream at 9 o'clock on a Saturday, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I don't know where you guys are at. So there you have it. I also want to talk about kind of moving on to the next chapter is just why oral health is so important. Okay, so um, I'll start with the basics, and then I'll get into kind of the more complex, perhaps more important aspects. So, reason number one, actually, no particular order really, but um, there's kind of a self esteem factor, right? So, if you have a cavity and you have really bad breath from it, or some sort of infection, or perhaps you lost a front tooth or something, and you can't really smile or even talk normally one on one with a person, or in a job interview or whatever, it kind of does a number on your confidence, right? And a life lived confidently is a lot more memorable and enjoyable than a life lived with low self-esteem and not being able to do certain things or say things even when you can't smile or talk normally. So for that sake, I would take care of my teeth, even for that. But the other factor I was thinking about is finances. Dentistry can be really expensive. So, it adds up, filling after filling, then it turns into a crown and then potentially a root canal or an implant. I've met patients with a full mouth of crowns. And I know that each crown is, roughly $700. So, times, say, average times 28 or times 20, I mean, however many crowns you have, that starts to rack up, right? Thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. And most of all that dental work, the crazy thing is it's preventable, right? So most of dental work occurs because of A, cavities, or B, periodontal disease. So I'll get into periodontal disease a little bit later. I'll start off with the cavities. So it's pretty simple. Everybody builds up plaque on their teeth, and the plaque is caused by bacteria that's in our mouth, and basically it eats whatever we eat, and it eats whatever we eat, excuse me, and and then it starts to basically poop out um, crap onto our teeth, and this crap it starts to um, it starts to irritate our either basically it starts to either cause an acid erosion on our teeth, or it starts to turn into tartar. So I'll get into the tartar later, but basically the acid on our teeth, it starts to cause a cavity. And so this cavity it starts to eat away at our tooth, and well, I'm sure you get the picture basically. Um, so the other thing though is periodontal disease. It's a little bit of a less known factor because I call it a silent killer. You can't really tell it's happening until basically it's too late. Um, but yeah, basically, like I tell my patients, everybody builds up plaque, and over time, if it's not removed, it actually starts to irritate your gums. And then long term, it starts to irritate the bone to the point where you start experiencing bone loss. And the more bone you lose, the more mobile your teeth get, and eventually you could lose your teeth. So that's periodontal disease. So, anyway, these are two super preventable issues: cavities and periodontal disease. And unfortunately, people are not aware of that, and they just keep piling into the dentist because of cavities that form on their teeth or periodontal disease that goes unnoticed. Now, all of these things, both of these things, I should say, happen primarily because people aren't very good with their home care. Um, and the thing is, oral health, oral hygiene, I should say, is actually very easy and simple to maintain. I'll tell you guys a little bit more about my personal routine. So actually, I just brush my teeth twice a day, and then I floss once a day. I use a manual toothbrush. I'm not a huge electric toothbrush fan at this time, just because I feel like it's a little bit more abrasive and can cause some long-term damage to tooth enamel and or gums. So yeah, I just use a manual toothbrush for now, and um, and then I floss in the evenings. I use the string floss because it tends to wrap around the teeth a little bit better. Um, but basically, those two things, that's basically what I do every day. Brush my teeth twice a day, floss once a day, and then actually, I should include my tongue. I scrape my tongue about once a day, maybe every other day. But this routine is super simple, and unfortunately, people either don't do it or they don't do a very good job of it. And so they come in with cavities, they come in with periodontal disease. Um, One of the other things I kind of forgot to mention with the importance of oral health, too, is not just your self esteem and it's not just your finances, but actually our mouth affects our whole body. Okay, so um, bear with me here. The bacteria in our mouth, uh, especially in periodontally involved patients, um, can actually increase the risk for heart disease, and it can increase the risk for things like Alzheimer's or dementia. So basically, what happens is, like I said, plaque builds up on our teeth, and if it's not removed regularly, it starts to solidify on our teeth. And over time, this tartar or calculus, it it starts to irritate your tissues and everything, cause inflammation. Well, now every time that you go in there to eat or to brush your teeth or to floss, and you cause potentially a little bit of bleeding, that blood or that bacteria that's on our teeth, it enters into the bloodstream and it travels through our whole system. And it causes potentially issues like heart disease, cardiovascular disease like stroke or heart attack, and it also can travel up into the brain and cause things like Alzheimer's. I mean, literally, just recently, maybe within the last couple of years, they've done studies on Alzheimer's patients, and they discovered the same bacteria, same exact bacteria that's in our mouth, in the mouths of, I should say, periodontally involved patients, the ones who have a lot of plaque, a lot of tartar on their teeth. That same bacteria was found in their brains, and they had Alzheimer's. So there's a distinct correlation there. So that's why that's kind of one of my passions, is trying to get the word out to patients. Like, it's a lot more serious than just preventing bad breath. It also has to do with taking care of your overall health too. I just had a patient the other day, unfortunately, who, no, I mean, not unfortunately, but came in and unfortunately had um, either some sort of a stroke or to some degree where he couldn't really move his hand. So he had a caregiver, his wife, come in with him and see him. And I've seen him before, but um, it was interesting to have a conversation with her afterwards because when I went in there, I saw quite a bit of tartar buildup. Basically he was periodontally involved, and then I came out to her and I said, hey, he really would benefit from a deep cleaning. And she said, you know what, man, things are really tough right now financially, and it's really hard to bring him in. And obviously, I'm never going to shame a patient or their caregiver about their oral health status or anything like that. But I explained to her, I was like, yeah, it's up to you, and definitely, don't make yourself feel bad. Don't go hard on yourself for not being able to afford certain things or whatever. You do whatever feels best for your family. But I just wanted to say that all this tartar buildup and inflammation. The reason why it's such a big concern is that actually it can affect our overall health. Just like I explained to you guys right now, heart disease, Alzheimer's, things like that. And she said, wow, it's very interesting you say this because he was recently diagnosed with dementia. And that just made me, that just made my heart break because I wonder if it was a direct correlation to that, with his periodontal condition and with everything else going on. So that's why it's super important to take care of our teeth. So let me know, you guys, at any point if you have any questions specifically that you want me to answer. I would love to get those answered for you guys. And if you're just joining me, again, let me know where you guys are watching from. It's very hard to connect with an audience when I'm just staring into a camera lens. But yeah, comment below or to the side, wherever you guys are watching, whether on a phone or a laptop, where you guys are watching from, and perhaps what got you guys into oral health and wanting to watch a live stream about oral health. So I actually did a live stream earlier today, and I had a couple of interesting questions. I'd love to go over them with you guys. Perhaps they're common questions, so you might relate. One of those questions was that I can think of is, what's better, an electric toothbrush or a manual toothbrush? So like I said a little bit earlier, I personally use a manual toothbrush just because electric toothbrushes tend to be a little bit more abrasive, as you could imagine. There's a lot of vibration and movement of the toothbrush bristles, and long term, it could cause some erosion, enamel erosion, or gum recession. And I've used an electric toothbrush for a while, and I started noticing some gum recession. So I stopped that. Now, there are some other potential factors coming into the whole gum recession thing. I can get into that a little bit later, but ultimately, I switched to a manual toothbrush, and there's one I really like in particular right now. It's called the Nimbus toothbrush. I feel like I always mention it, but it's literally my favorite manual toothbrush to use. The bristles are a lot thinner and softer than any other toothbrush I've used before, and it gets under the gums really nicely. Hello, alpha male. How are you, ma'am? Doing great. Thank you. Um, so, so yeah, I use a manual toothbrush because the electric toothbrush is super abrasive. Now, the other reason I use a manual toothbrush is the bristles on an electric toothbrush tend to be a little bit more stiff than on a manual toothbrush. Of course, depending on which type of manual toothbrush you're using. I use a soft bristled one, but because an electric toothbrush has a lot of force and movement involved in it, it needs to be a little bit um, more firm, I guess you could say. And because the bristles are a little bit stiffer, potentially a little bit thicker, I feel like it doesn't get under the gums as well. Um, and even maybe patients who use an electric toothbrush tend to even stay away from the gums because it can be such an aggressive movement that it tends to irritate their gums or hurt them, so they stay away from the gums, which is a big no-no, right? Because we do want to brush along the gum line because that's where plaque builds up. So super important, yeah, to brush along the gum line. So actually, since we're on the topic of gum line and brushing and stuff, I want to talk to you guys about the my simple home care routine and what exactly that entails. So, like I said a little bit earlier, I brush my teeth twice a day. But what's more important than um, brushing many times even a day, is your technique, right? So I could brush 7 times a day, but if I don't do a good job of brushing, it doesn't really matter how many times I brush. So, what I tell my patients is basically when you're brushing, you want to make sure that you're pointing toward the gums and any surface, right? On the outside, on the inside, the top of the inside, the inside of the top, everywhere you want to focus toward the gums. And then you want to, if you're using a manual toothbrush, you want to use round circular motions. If you're using an electric toothbrush, you want to just turn the toothbrush on and trace along the gum line. You don't want to do any movement with the electric toothbrush because you're just going to miss spots. And remember, the electric toothbrush is doing the work for you. So no need to do any crazy movements, just trace along the gum line. As for floss, there's a lot of stuff about floss, but ultimately, number one, you need to floss, period, right? So either, ideally once a day, but even if it's once or twice a week, again, what's more important is your technique. So instead of, regardless of what you're using, whether you're using the string floss or the flossers, you want to make sure that you're really wiping down the side of each tooth rather than just wiggling your floss around or your string around to get food debris out. The reason is because all that plaque from all that bacteria really sticks onto the sides of our teeth. And so if you're just wiggling your floss around in there, you're not really getting the whole side of a tooth. And that's where cavities can start forming and tartar can start building up and causing issues in the long run. So yeah, when you get in there, in between your teeth, you want to wiggle the floss down, like push the floss against one side of your tooth or one tooth, and then wiggle down all the way under the gums. And then wipe that side down, push against the other tooth, get all the way under the gums, and wipe that side down, and then keep moving along. And if you do that, once a day, along with brushing, you can very much prevent things like cavities and periodontal disease. One other question I've gotten before from patients, is if I take care of my teeth so well, like why should I even go to the dentist? Um, it would be logical, right, to assume that, I don't really need to go to the dentist. But even I, as a hygienist, sometimes miss spots. And over the year, or no, excuse me, not over the years, over the months, that plaque can start to build up and turn into tartar. There's actually a lot of hard to reach areas. So it's important to visit your hygienist, you know, regularly, in order to remove plaque and tartar from those hard to reach areas. It's also a good idea to do that to make sure that you're not forming any cavities, that your periodontal condition is good, that maybe you don't have any infections or lesions up in your bone and stuff like that with X-rays. Alrighty, so I'm going to take a break from talking and look into whether you guys ask some questions and go ahead and answer those. So give me a second here. Okay. So you have, am I assuming, okay, so I have a question here. I'm assuming you have a veneer on tooth number 18. And can you get away with interdental brush and water flossing? Very difficult to floss properly. Oh man, yeah, I totally get having difficulty flossing. I have flossed patients where my floss shreds on them. I can't get in there. Um, I'm just curious, a veneer on tooth number 18. Perhaps I'm using a different numbering system, but that's a tooth in the very back. Typically, those teeth don't have veneers. Do you mean if it's a crown, or if you could maybe clarify that? But ultimately, I've actually made a video on this. If there's a tooth or teeth that you can't floss in between because of some restoration, I would highly recommend you go back to the dentist who did that restoration and get it fixed or altered. You should be able to floss, and that's something they should have checked right from the beginning, is so that you could floss properly in between the teeth that are affected. Because unfortunately, um, there is nothing really that can fully replace floss. An interdental brush, if I can just kind of demonstrate to you. So here's a couple of teeth, right? And an interdental brush goes basically right in between the teeth at the bottom right here, if you guys can see that little space there. But it doesn't reach in this portion and this portion, which is basically, this portion is the top portion where the two teeth touch. And this portion is basically the gum line underneath the gums. And plaque can build up around this area and cause cavities. And plaque can build up in this area, potentially leading to tartar or turning into tartar and causing bone loss and basically periodontal involvement. So that's the issue with interdental brushes alone. Water flossing, also, same thing. It helps to remove any big chunks of food debris from the teeth, but there is the plaque that adheres to our teeth is stuck to our teeth with a layer of very resilient biofilm, and no amount of water pressure from a water flosser is going to remove that film from our teeth. And potentially very, very high pressure could remove it. But we're talking pressure that is going to literally like lob your gums off. So we don't want to get into that high of a water pressure. So, so yeah, I hope that answers your question. Hi, hello, Curtis, from Georgia. I'm from Washington. It's pretty cold out here. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I'm not sure what you mean by a full set of teeth there. Oh, you have a full set of veneers, and it's very difficult to floss between them, if I am understanding correctly. Hopefully, I'm understanding that correctly. Yeah, so same thing applies. It really is unfortunate that you have a whole set of teeth that are very difficult to floss. Potentially, you can look into a floss that is a little bit thinner I don't always recommend this floss to patients, but there's a floss called Glide, or like Oral B Easy Glide, or potentially even Colgate has come up with a very thin, kind of a slippery floss that gets in between teeth very well. Um, and it's not the same as regular, like, threaded or waxed floss. It doesn't have as much texture to it, but I would say it's still a little bit better than using just interdental brushes and water flossing. But long term, I love what you're doing, that you're actually, trying to get in between your teeth with an interdental brush and with a water flosser. Um, there are a handful of patients that I have seen that could get away, and I mean, like, literally, I count on my fingers, I'm telling you guys, how many patients could get away with, cutting the corners, in terms of, not really flossing. So maybe, hopefully, you are one of those people who could get away with that, but I would definitely, go see your, dentist/dental hygienist regularly to make sure that your, periodontal tissues are, in a stable condition if you're not able to get floss through. Okay, let's see here. If you guys have any more questions, again, a reminder, this live stream is for you guys. So if you have any questions on your mind that you kind of want to ask your dentist, but you don't really want to call them, I'm here for you guys. All my knowledge is yours. If you just ask me, ask away. So I guess while you guys are thinking about questions, I'll tell you guys some funny stories about patients I have seen without disclosing any names, of course, or anything like that. Um, One of the craziest things I have heard, or have seen seen with a patient basically is, I had an elderly gal come in many years ago, and I'm getting ready to clean her teeth, and she opens her mouth, and I kind of pull her cheek aside to just do like an overall, um, eh, peruse through her mouth to see how everything's doing. And in the corner of her mouth, like on the very bottom corner here, I uh, I I noticed like some little orange thing, and then out of the orange little thing were like little dangly, tiny, like hair-like stuff hanging out. So I turn open up my loops and like get closer in there, and I realized I was looking at a spider. So this elderly lady probably, slept with her mouth open and a spider crawled in. I mean, it was little, but still, she crawled and the spider probably crawled into her mouth, and maybe she closed her mouth on the spider or something, I don't know. But, yeah, I just politely wiped it out and, continued cleaning. I didn't even mention it to her. So if you guys are wondering about spiders, they say you're never further away than 6 feet from a spider. It's true. They literally can crawl into your mouth. Um, oh, man. Oh, thank you. I somebody commented, "My hair is so shiny and nice." I have a couple of secrets. Sometimes I use a little bit of lotion to hide um, my baby hairs because I have a lot of them. So yeah, lotion is the trick. Um, have you tried Waterpik brush and floss? Ooh, I'm not sure I understand. What Waterpik came out with a brush and a floss? Curtis, could you clarify that question for me? I'm not sure what you're asking. Um, so yeah, that was one of my funny stories. Something else crazy that actually happened a little bit more recently. A patient came in and um, asked me to get a full set of gold crowns on her teeth because she didn't want to deal with brushing or flossing her teeth. And for me, I was just like flabbergasted, and also I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. But then I realized, people don't really know what I know. So I explained to her, and this is what I explained to her. I said, even if you get a full set of gold crowns or any material crowns, um, you still have to brush and floss your teeth. And here's why. Uh, a crown, so here's a tooth, right? My tooth model for the day. A crown covers the enamel portion of a tooth, but right underneath that portion that's covered by a crown is what a tooth material called cementum. So it's tooth structure. There's tooth structure underneath that, and it's covered typically by our gums, but it's still accessible to bacteria. And that bacteria can cause things like cavities and periodontal disease, basically tartar buildup, which results in bone loss. So there's really no cutting corners, no matter what kind of, unless you have, honestly, even if you have a full set of dentures, you still have to clean your gums and clean your dentures. Because if you don't, you can develop things like oral candida and other fungal infections from basically wearing dentures all day long and not cleaning your gums and your dentures. So again, there's no cutting corners. Even if you have a crown or a couple of crowns, um, even if you have implants, our gums and our bone can get irritated from plaque that can build up around our implants. So you gotta floss every single tooth. You gotta, brush every tooth. Yeah, super important. Um, okay, so thank you, Curtis, for clarifying that. They have an electric brush that flosses as you brush. Okay, so I think I've never personally tried this, but I think I know what you're talking about. It's an electric brush that kind of sprays water as you brush, if I am not mistaken. Um, like I said, I've never tried it before, but I would say right off the bat, it's probably not as effective as they potentially claim it to be. Um, because, like I mentioned earlier, water flossing does not replace actual flossing. The stuff that's stuck onto our teeth is so resilient to any sort of water pressure that water flossing is just not very effective. Excuse me. Water flossing helps to remove any loose food debris and stuff, but it doesn't actually remove that film off our teeth. And I see this in patients time and again where they say, "Oh, I only use a water flosser," and I get in there and it's consistent. They have tartar buildup and bone loss over the years as they come in, and they're my patients. And their tartar is very hard to distinguish, to find, and to remove because the water flosser gets off a lot of the big stuff, but it doesn't quite remove that entire layer, that layer of biofilm. So it starts to stick onto the teeth and become like this grainy tartar that's really hard to remove. So anyway, long story short, an electric toothbrush with a water flosser built into it, I'm gonna have to say that it's a nice attempt, but it's not going to do the work of floss. I get this question often though, like, but isn't water flossing better than not flossing, than doing nothing at all? I suppose a little bit, but long term, like I said, every water flossing patient, or exclusively, I should say, water flossing patient, still runs into periodontal disease. And in fact, they end up having to get referred in the long run. Potentially, they have to get referred out to a periodontist because that tartar is just so hard to remove because it's such a thin layer. It's hard to grab up with our instruments. Um, so, you could potentially get away with it for a short while with just water flossing, but it's going to catch up to you over time anyway. I mentioned a little bit earlier in the video, there are a very small, I hate to say this, but there are a very small handful of patients that have kind of more or less gotten away with not using actual floss. But I wouldn't bet that one of those people is you. I would just go with the floss, with the actual floss, if it's possible. Alrighty, guys. So it is late on a Saturday night. So I'm going to be wrapping this up here. If you guys have no more questions, thank you again so much for joining me. It's been an honor to share all my information, all my wisdom with you guys. I will be doing these live streams once a month. So come prepared with your questions. And I'll be really happy to answer them, as well as share more crazy stories and just fun stuff about teeth. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care of your teeth.